Today we've come to look for the last 3 miles of the Ashby Canal. We started off up a remains of an old railway track from Conker's Waterside Centre. This is Spring Cottage, which was mentioned on a signpost on the railway track last week, and we're now heading off into the sticks looking for the extreme top end of the Ashby Canal, which has still got water in it. We'll find that in a minute or two. After that we follow it south past Conker's onto the restored section of the Ashby Canal until it fizzles out at Dunsthorpe. Now we come off the railway track and down a path and come to this watery area, and somewhere amongst all that is the final resting place of the extreme north part of the Ashby Canal, and hopefully the final milepost, which we did find before earlier in the year. I hope it's still there. And there it is in the middle, that water, which then widens out and splits into two to form the final wharf. And here we are at the extreme northern tip of the old Ashby Canal. This bit's actually got water in it and used to be the centre of all sorts of collieries and other things in this area. Now it's just woodland and fishing ponds. I think this is the longest arm. The shortest arm is just in front of us. This is and in between the two arms there was even according to the old maps, a railway track coming up it, which is presumably what this track is now. I'll have a look at the old maps. There it is, the end. Didn't go beyond this. And here we are at the tip of the shorter arm of the two that form the wharf here. A bit like Coventry Canal, where it splits into two. Milepost number 30, the last one. We're counting down today, well at least we possibly may find number 28 out in the sticks somewhere on the way down, and that will be it for collecting mileposts. And there we have the splitting of the canal into its two arms. At this point the old canal is just nestling amongst a load of fishing pools. There's Willow Pool, and presumably these are relics of the old industrial environment that was here. And now we've come to the southern end of this little stretch. It was only a few hundred yards long, and that's the end of the canal with water in it for the moment. They've given it a name, quite popular with us. So what we've just come through is Spring Cottage Fisheries, and just here on the road where the canal crossed over, there's Slacky Lane and a footpath, and the canal went across the road. Presumably the road had a humpback bridge over it at that point, but that's vanished now. That was called Spring Cottage Bridge. We shall go up that footpath over there. So as we go up this path, it's following the course of the old canal, which is just down here amongst all this vegetation on the right, from what I can make out on the maps. And on our left, the other side of this hedge, if you like, is the Camping and Caravan Club Conker's campsite where we were earlier in the year and originally found all this extreme of the Ashby Canal. Come out of our little pathway and joined onto the access road for the campsite and the youth hostel. The canal bed was probably down there, and it goes along as far as the road and then dives under the disused railway track into Conkers Leisure Centre, water park or whatever you call it. So we have no access to that, so we're going to have to go up onto the railway and rejoin it at the other end of that. There's the signpost at the entrance to the service road for the campsite and youth hostel, and behind it is the railway. Oh, this is the route of the old railway. And there we are, the bridge for the railway over the road. So now we're on the railway track. That's the bridge just there. Here is another mine seam marker. There's several under that. And we head off in a northerly direction to find the existing bit of restored canal. We now come to join a forking of the ways of two railway tracks. There it is, Ashby World Heritage Trail on the left, and on the right the route to Conkers, which we now follow. The odd carved sculpture. So we're in Moira Junction Nature Reserve, and we came up the railway track there, forked off up that direction. We cross another arm of the railway under it and nearly approaching Conkers. And here we are at Conkers. There's a little railway for amusement purposes which crosses these automatic gates, a level crossing, and dives off through a railway tunnel at the junction of two railways, proper ones. Here we are at the northern end of the restored part of the Ashby Canal. Quite nice for sitting by with your lunch when it's nice and sunny. But A, we haven't got a lunch, and B, it's not sunny at the moment. At least it's not drizzling like it was on the way up. So we now follow this canal down to Donisthorpe, past all the interesting sights on the way. Another mine seam marker. And we're heading towards Moira Furnace. And yes, despite this being an isolated section of restored canal, there is a lock, in fact a double lock. And the upper bit is quite a short one, but I don't think that's important because they're on the same level. Here we come to Moira Furnace. As you can see, there's a boat of the same name. It's got nowhere else to go. It's just done a turn round. There's Moira Furnace. Back view of the Moira Furnace and the direction the canal goes. According to the maps, the restored bit of canal is just there. There's some kilns on the other side. This bit down here is probably the route of the old route of the canal, which the restored bit has seemingly diverged from. We'll follow this and see what happens. And deep in the woods here, there are a couple of concrete pillars looking like bridge supports. So they must have been going over something, probably the canal. Nice little wooden footbridge over the canal, which we have rejoined, and a trip boat going backwards and forwards. And here we find the last milepost that we're expecting, number 20, mile 28 from the start. 2 miles to the end, well, the end where it originally was. So our quest is complete as far as mileposts are concerned. All we've got to get now to do is now get to Untitled so we can have some lunch. A prime objective. And after that part where the trip boat was doing its backwards and forwards, now the canal is rapidly disappearing in width amongst all the reeds. It's just a small gap in all the reeds, so we can see the canal temporarily. Oh, it's suddenly gone wide again with a proper concrete bank. Supports life. So we come to the extreme southern end of the restored Ashby Canal. There's the signs back to where we came from. And there is the end. Quite a lot of people about today. Obviously enjoy wandering about on this canal towpath. And the course of the canal goes off down this track. We go down there and join the road into civilization. There's the path we've just come along from the end of the canal. And the road which we go along into the village, and the canal would have gone over there. Not much sign of that now. Having had a lunch break, we now have a moderately short walk, 2¼ miles it says here according to this signpost, back to Conkers. Not a grand entrance. DC, which is presumably Untitled Colliery. But this is the course of the old railway which we were following up last week to Untitled. Now we continue north. We are at Untitled Woodland Park, which all this industry has now become. And we'll be going up through there. We are here. The old railway line. To beyond the wildflowers to Conkers. Oh, a nice little picture of that wooden bridge that we saw earlier on to Moira Furnace. Here's the interesting information about the Woodland Park. The site was originally the Untitled Colliery, which operated between 1871 and 1990, producing up to 300,000 tonnes of coal each year at its peak. Leicestershire County Council acquired the site from British Coal in 1995. Reclamation works began to improve the landscape. Steep slopes were regraded, gravel trails and drainage systems were constructed using recycled stone products generated during the demolition of the colliery buildings and roadways. So now we can only imagine what it looked like. But we've just spoken to a person in the pub who came here 30-something years ago and says it was a rather black area, but no, it's nothing like that. We're on a magnificent embankment up here, way above the road. And the next one we come to, next bridge we come to, is where we come off. Here's an interesting bit of railway something or other. What it does, isn't the only thing now, seized up. Well, it could be mailbag type of thing, couldn't it? If they had mailbags or other dropping off points. Yes. And here's where we finally say goodbye to the old railway track and find our way back to the car.